2 times 20 is an absolute delight and might be one of my favourite episodes of Good Advice so far. This is the second episode of the second season. It's directed by Alan Rafkin, and as always there will be spoilers as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off, as is usually the case, with Susan and a therapy session. She's giving therapy to a couple where the wife or partner, I can't remember if they're married, but she is a stand-up comedian and her partner is not happy that she's telling jokes about him on stage. So she tells the joke, Susan laughs, then she tells a joke about a therapist, Susan doesn't laugh. It's a fun start. Susan is then in the kitchen and she follows a little trail as there's a note for her on the fridge, and then there's a note for her on the banana, and then surprise, it's her birthday. Everybody comes out, says happy birthday. She ends up with a party hat on her head, and it turns out she's 40. And Paige, her sister, tells her that she clearly has an issue with being 40, but Susan is convinced that she's fine, she's happy, it's just an age, just a number. And we'll see how that goes as the episode develops. She then goes to work, and Jack's gift to Susan is 10 dates to be used throughout the calendar year. So she can use Jack as her companion to any function, event, whatever she wants for 10 dates. Honestly, on the one hand, that seems like a really offensive gift to imply she can't get her own dates. But at the same time, that's actually kind of sweet to say I will be with you when you need somebody. Granted, only on 10 occasions, but I actually think Jack had really good intentions there, and I rather like that. So definitely pros and cons there, but in general I thought his heart was probably in the right place. They threw some insults at each other in Susan's office. It was really good banter, very well written. Susan seems to be taking everything well, but she makes a slight face when she shuts the door once Jack leaves. It's very brief before we fade to the next scene. But that face definitely suggested she wasn't completely okay with being 40. And she then had lunch with some colleagues, the support group, and they basically bummed her out. They basically gave her reasons to feel bad about turning 40. And she goes home, she feels sorry for herself, she's eating a lot of cake. And then the contractor comes in, Marco. He's doing some work on her porch steps. And she's just having a bit of a whinge, feeling sorry for herself. And Marco says he understands. He's just had a birthday himself. He's just turned 28. Susan's response to that, I thought, was brilliant. Very, very funny. And she says that she worries people won't find her desirable. He says she is desirable. The next thing we know, they're on the sofa together, and then they're across the kitchen, and Susan is sliding across the countertops. And then Susan is on top of the cake. Marco is on top of Susan. It's very smushy. And the next thing we know, Susan's sister, her colleagues, they're all peering through the tops of the kitchen windows, looking at Susan and Marco on the table, on the cake. And Susan, to her credit, she just smiled through it all. And I think that's because Marco had really made her feel really good about herself. Not just in a physical sense, but suddenly she realised, actually, I might be 40, but I am still desirable. I still feel good about myself. And I absolutely loved that. Marco left. I think he was probably a lot more embarrassed than Susan was. And everybody comes in and they have a little giggle about it. And Susan's just, it's fine. It's great. Everything's fantastic. And she says that she feels really great about herself. And then she says, so let's celebrate me. And she gets a plate, wipes frosting off of her butt, smacks it into the plate and hands it to Jack, and then smears frosting across his face. And I rather liked it. I thought it was beautifully executed. Very, very well done. And a really delightful way to end the episode. I love that she was just feeling so good about herself, so good about life. This is very different to Susan from previous episodes, because most of the episodes have been focused on her divorce. They've been quite heavy. Understandably, Susan hasn't felt good about herself. So to turn things around, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. Shelley Long gave an amazing performance. Granted, she always does, but I just feel this one was a little bit more interesting, a little bit more special, and I rather enjoyed it a lot. And definitely, I think maybe one of my favourites. I don't know if it would be my top favourite episode of Good Advice. I don't know, but either way, I thought 2 times 20 was pretty brilliant.